The winter-stated meeting of the Presbytery of West Virginia will be held on Saturday, February 19th on Zoom. I'm Susan Sharp Campbell, Associate for Educational Ministry, and in this video I'll be walking through the docket and providing an overview of the work we will be about on the 19th. If you have not yet registered for the meeting, please do so before 5 p.m. on Monday, February 14th to ensure that you get the Zoom login information. If this will be your first Presbytery meeting on Zoom, or if you'd just like to know more, there'll be an orientation to the Zoom meeting on Sunday, February 13th at 3 p.m., during which Maureen Wright, our stated clerk, will review how to be prepared for the meeting, the process we will follow, including how to get the attention of the moderator for those who wish to speak, and how we will be voting. Please note that the time of this orientation is different from that which was sent with the registration information so that it no longer conflicts with the Super Bowl. On the 19th, you'll be able to join the meeting beginning at 9 a.m. You may join with your computer, tablet, or phone. When you join, it would be helpful if you would mute your microphone, and if you're on a computer or a tablet, please be sure that your name is on your screen so that those taking attendance can note your presence. At this time, if you've not already done so, I encourage you to download the packet that was sent in an email on Wednesday, February 9th, or can be found at www.wvpresbytery.org, and walk through it with me. You'll note it's a considerable number of pages. You do not need to print all of this, particularly if you familiarize yourself with it prior to the 19th. However, you may want to download the docket on the first pages of the packet so that you can easily follow it during the meeting. And you'll also may want to download the worship bulletin that is found just after the meeting evaluation page. As you review the materials in the packet, it's divided into 3 sections. The first is the docket with the agenda and committee reports. The second contains the worship bulletin. And the third contains flyers on upcoming events in the Presbytery. The docket that begins on page 1 of the advanced packet sets forth the order in which business will be considered. Items marked with an asterisk indicate orders of the day. These items will be taken up at the times noted, even if that means an item needs to be set aside and taken up again later. The meeting will be called to order at 9:30 a.m. The first item of business will be the statement of a quorum being present. A quorum for this meeting is 15% of our ministers of word and sacrament, or 17, and 15% of our churches represented by a ruling elder commissioner, or 18. The docket will be approved next, followed by the approval of the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda that will all be approved with one vote unless there's an item someone wants to discuss or hear more about. Just because something is on the consent agenda doesn't mean it isn't important. Items are placed there because those planning the meeting don't anticipate they will generate any discussion. But again, if you want to discuss something, just ask that it be pulled off the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda for this meeting include requests for excused absences, approval of the offering from today's meeting going to the West Virginia Ministry of Advocacy and Work Camps, also known as WVMAW. You may contribute to the offering by sending a check to the Presbytery office with WVMAW in the memo line, or go to www.wvpresbytery.org and contribute by PayPal. The final item on the consent agenda is reauthorizing ruling elders to preside at communion in their congregations of membership. Please be aware that the training for ruling elders to do so is now being offered on an as-needed requested basis. Following the approval of the consent agenda, David Lee will be installed as the 2022 moderator of the Presbytery and will moderate the remainder of the meeting. At every Presbytery meeting, there's time in the morning for an educational focus. Janelle Holmes, organizing pastor of the Ormwood Presbyterian Church, part of the 1001 Worshiping Communities Network, will be speaking. She will focus on the ways that all churches can reach out into our communities with the good news of God's grace. Following the education piece, there'll be an announcement about the Presbyterian Youth Triennium for youth currently in grades 8 through 12, which will take place in Indianapolis in July. We will then join together in a time of worship. During worship, we will be celebrating the renewal of our baptismal vows. Worship leaders include Commission Pastors Jenna Taylor and Jay Nunley, Ministers of Word and Sacrament Laura Brecky Wagner and Evan Walker, and the Bree Memorial Presbyterian Church Choir under the direction of Michael Belt. We then return to the business of the Presbytery. Corresponding members, that is, members who are members of other presbyteries who are present at our meeting, will be seated. That means given the right for voice but no vote. And any visiting members of Word and Sacrament will be introduced. Ruling elders who are attending their first presbytery meeting as a commissioner will also be introduced. Temporary clerks will then be appointed by the moderator. They will assist in monitoring the chat feature of Zoom, which is how those who wish to speak will be recognized by the moderator, and they will tally any virtual votes as needed. Leadership team members will then be appointed to serve as the committee on bills and overtures, and they will process any new business as needed. With regard to items for new business, please be aware that such items must be submitted to the stated clerk by email before the end of the General Presbyter's report. The report of stated clerk Maureen Wright includes correspondence that she has received and referred. Her recommendation for excused absences will most likely have been passed on the consent agenda. You'll find in the information section of her report information on the Presbytery's Permanent Judicial Commission and a report on session records that have been reviewed since our last Presbytery meeting. If your congregations or your sessions records for 2020 still need to be reviewed, please be in touch with Maureen. As part of her report, Maureen will also be reviewing the special procedural matters we will follow as we meet on Zoom. These include who the participants at this meeting are, that in order to be part of the meeting, persons must register no later than 3 days in advance, or Wednesday, February 16th, how a quorum will be determined, how to be recognized by the moderator in order to speak, and the deadline for new business. Please note that if you get disconnected and try to reconnect during the meeting, every effort will be made to readmit you. Here you will also find the procedural rules we will be following throughout the meeting. These include principles of parliamentary law, courtesy to all, one item at a time, majority rule, respect the rights of the minority, justice for all, and partiality for none. As items are discussed, pro and con speakers will alternate, with individuals identifying the position they support. When one person has spoken on a pending question, all others wishing to speak will be heard before that person can speak a second time. It takes special permission for anyone to speak on the same question more than twice. Here you will also find provisions from the Presbytery's manual that guide us, including who has the ability to speak, and who has the ability to speak and to vote during the meeting. Please note that in the final section of the procedural rules, number 1 differs for this meeting. As noted above, those wishing to speak will do so by using the chat feature or using the electronic hand feature. If you aren't sure what that means, I hope you'll plan to attend the Zoom orientation training on Sunday, February 13th. When called on by the moderator, when you ask to speak, share your name, church, or relationship with the Presbytery. Address your question to the moderator, and then you will be muted by the Zoom host when you finish. As part of the procedural rules, you will find that the limitation for debating any motion is 30 minutes per main motion, with each speaker limited to 3 minutes per speech, although this must be approved by 2/3 of those voting on the 19th. I encourage you that if, as you read the packet, you see there's an item you wish to speak to, write your remarks down to help keep you focused and within the time frame. Ed Thompson, our General Presbyter's report, is next, and he lifts up the reality of change and changes that are here and coming, and ways in which the Presbytery may find itself adapting as it serves our congregations in the midst of change. The last part of Ed's report summarizes his work in the Presbytery since we last met. We will then move to the reports of the leadership team and committees. In these reports, you will find recommendations that we will be voting on at this meeting and information on the ongoing work of the committee. Because recommendations will be coming from a committee, they will not require a second. The leadership team's recommendation regarding the offering being given to West Virginia Mall will most likely have been approved on the consent agenda. The information section of the leadership team reports notes ongoing conversation regarding the work of the Financial Sustainability Task Force. It is anticipated that their recommendations regarding the sale of the Presbytery building and the future of the Resource Center will be voted on at the May meeting. We are waiting to vote on these matters until we can do so in person. Recommendations regarding the separation of the Presbytery and Bluestone Camp will be presented at a later date. Following the leadership team report, we will be recognizing those ruling elders and ministers of word and sacrament in our presbytery who died in the past year, based on information reported by churches in the presbytery. The Committee on Ministry is recommending the appointment of an administrative commission to dissolve the Red Sulphur Presbyterian Church in Ballard, at their request. The work of the commission is outlined in the recommendation. You will also find information here on ministers of word and sacrament who will be moderating churches without pastors, the approval of covenants for 2 new commission pastors, the renewal of covenants with temporary supply ministers and commission pastors, the approval of installed pastor compensations, exit interviews with pastors and sessions in time of transition, and other ways in which the committee is working with congregations and with pastors. Please note in their report that this year's small church conference will be held on Saturday, October 1st. At the conclusion of the Committee on Ministry report, Jennifer Anderson will be commissioned as the commission pastor at First Presbyterian Church of Whitesville, and Jenna Taylor will be commissioned to First Presbyterian Church, South Charleston. The Committee on Representation, which serves in the nominating role for the presbytery, will be bringing several recommendations for those to be elected to serve on presbytery committees, to serve as an alternate General Assembly commissioner, and to read ordination exams. Once the names of those listed are placed in nomination, the moderator will ask if there are any nominations from the floor. If there is someone you wish to nominate for any of these positions, please be aware that before you do so, the person nominated must have agreed to serve in advance of being nominated. Joan Stewart, Executive Director of West Virginia Ministry of Advocacy and Work Camps, the recipient of our offering at this meeting, will then bring greetings and update us on WV Mall's work. Good news from the pews will be next. This is a time for all who are present to share with one another one item of good news from their congregations. We'll be divided into breakout rooms for this activity. When you're invited to join a breakout room, just click join and you'll be taken to it. Once the time is up, all participants will be returned to the main meeting. The trustees will then be recommending a quitclaim deed to the state of West Virginia for the former Cass Presbyterian Church. The Cass Presbyterian Church was dissolved in 1974. The church became a community center and a committee was designated to oversee its use. Since that time, the Cass Railroad and most of the town of Cass have become the Cass Scenic Railroad State Park. This motion is intended to fully relinquish any interest in the operation of the state park. In addition, the ongoing work of the trustees is highlighted in the information section. During the Stewardship Committee report, Rocky Poole, Financial Administrator and Treasurer for the Presbytery, will be sharing year-end financial reports, as well as per capita and shared ministry benevolence giving by churches for 2021 and 2022. You will also find in the financial reports a year-end report from Bluestone and Friends of Bluestone. The Vocations Committee report will be next. The committee's recommendation for several ruling elders to be reauthorized to preside at communion will likely have been approved on the consent agenda. In October, Lauren Davis, a member of First Presbyterian Church Charleston, was approved by the committee as a candidate to become a minister of word and sacrament under care of this presbytery. At this meeting, she will be sharing with us about her Christian experience, her forms of service to the church, and her motivation for seeking ordination. In the information section of the committee's report, you will find that they have revised their policies and procedures document, which guides a significant part of their work. This document can be found after the report. You will also note that Jay Nunley, previously an inquirer under care, requested that he be removed as an inquirer, which was approved by the committee. The committee also examined Jenna Taylor as to her readiness to become a commissioned pastor, which we will celebrate at this meeting as she is commissioned. The Bluestone Committee does not have a written report for this meeting, but Sarah Specht, Bluestone Camp's program director, will be reporting on plans for summer camp this summer. The Administration Committee report highlights its review of the work of the General Presbyter and its lunch with Presbytery staff in December. It also lifts up its work in developing plans to implement the Financial Sustainability Task Force recommendations if they are approved by the Presbytery at our next in-person meeting. As part of the Administration Committee report, they will be leading the Presbytery in recognizing the retirement of Nellie Howard, our Resource Center Director. As she moves to retirement, we want to thank her for her meaningful work in our midst, as she has helped many of us find the resources we needed. The Nurture Committee does not have an oral report for this meeting, but you will find their written report at the end of the committee reports. As part of their work over the past year, the committee reviewed and revised the Presbytery strategy for inclusivity. You will find the revised version at the end of the committee report. You will also find in the information section information about the continuing operation of the Resource Center at this point in time. While specific plans are still in progress, the intent is for the Resource Center to continue operation, though with more limited hours. In addition, please note that it is time to consider youth in your congregation who might apply to serve on the Presbytery's Youth Council. At the end of the report, you will find information on ongoing events in the Presbytery. Please note that there will be an Officer Training 101 on February 20 and 27. If you haven't registered but are interested in participating, please let me know at susan_sharp_campbell@hotmail.com as soon as possible. Following the committee reports, you will find an evaluation form for the meeting. You may print and return this form that you've downloaded, or one will be sent to you following the meeting, or you can go online to the Presbytery's website and complete one there. However you choose to access and complete this form, I encourage you to do so. Your comments are taken seriously by those planning for future meetings. Following the evaluation form is the worship bulletin. Again, you may wish to download and print this to enhance your participation in the service. And then after the bulletin is the third section called Flyers. This section contains information on upcoming events, and these flyers are meant to be shared with those on your session and in your congregation. Flyers in the packet include several from the Nurture Committee, one on officer training, there's one on the Educator, Clergy, Commission, Pastor, Authorized Lay Preacher Retreat at the end of this month, the Younger Youth Retreat on March 19th, opportunity for youth and adults to serve on the Youth Council, Festival of Faith, which will be April 2nd, and expanding your ministry toolbox course on discernment that's open to anyone interested, Presbyterian Youth Triennium in July. And the Bluestone Committee has flyers on the Guys Retreat to be held April 22nd through 24th, the Spring Retreat to be held April 29th through May 1st, Summer Camp, and Send a Kid to Camp. If there's no new business given to the stated clerk before the end of Ed Thompson's report, we will then move to adjourn, and the moderator will send us out with a benediction. But I encourage you to remember that your work as a commissioner to this meeting is not over when you turn off Zoom. Your work continues as you share the work of the Presbytery at this meeting with your session, as you share the flyers with those in your congregation who might be interested in the events, and as you continue to pray for the work of the Presbytery. While I have lifted up much of the work of the committees that has been shared in their reports, this video is not meant to take the place of a careful reading of the entire packet in advance of the meeting. However, as you read, I encourage you not to make up your mind on how you're going to vote on different items before the meeting. We believe that as we gather in councils of the church, including Presbytery meetings, we do so in the presence of the Holy Spirit who guides us in making decisions together. So come informed. Come open to where you may hear the Spirit speaking or feel the Spirit's guidance in the words of others and perhaps even in your own words. I look forward to seeing you on Zoom on Saturday, February 19th for this meeting of the Presbytery. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thanks for watching.